Hi, thank you so much for clicking on my video. Welcome or welcome back to Lit Couture. My name is Kristen, and today we are going to be doing my October reading wrap-up, which of course includes the stunning conclusion to Did She Finish All 16 Books to Spookopoly? Here is my lovely stuff. Here you go. I decided, you know what I'm gonna do? Instead of reading 16 books, I'm gonna take the number 16 and double it and read 32 books in the month of October. And I did it. And there's only 31 days in the month of October, if you counted. So here we go for a 32 book wrap up for the month of October. We'll start with Spookopoly, which did indeed have 16 books. Yay! Spookopoly wrap up. First book I got for Spookopoly was The Coven by Harper L. Woods, and I saved this for the very end because that's Kristen logic for you. This did indeed look very spooky-ooky, and it was very spooky-ooky. I was very excited to have a vampire in my books. I was not very excited to have a witch in my book. In fact, I'm going to have a running count going at the bottom here for all the books that include witches, so we can see how many included witches at the end of the month, because man, am I witched out. The Coven is about a charming girl who gets to go to a lovely witch school. It is this like boarding school, and it's very exclusive, and they haven't accepted new students in ages and ages and ages because there was this like massacre that occurred there a while ago, and it was a big fat disaster. No one's really telling her a whole ton about it, but you know what really the book is focusing on anyway? The headmaster, who's a vessel, which is kind of like a vampire. There's like a demon thing who possesses the body of a always very attractive human, in this case a man, which we love to see. And of course, they're attracted to one another, but they're basically enemies. And, you know, he needs blood, and I'm sorry. Anyway, our girl at Hallows Grove gets there, and she's trying to uncover these mysteries, and it turns out the kind of magic that she's been practicing is like super outlawed, and she's trying to get into her groove, and then all of a sudden murders start. There's always murders. Why are there always murders? There's always murders. And then maybe there's like these 13 ghosts who got massacred before, and maybe they're like coming to like haunt people, and it's a good time. And I thought, this sounds very Halloween-y, and it was very Halloween-y. And I'm going along, and I put my little tabs, I'm enjoying the like chemistry, and I'm like, yes, this is what I needed. I didn't get much smut all month. I'm loving this. I'm eating this up. And then we get to the last like few pages, like the last like chapter, 2 chapters, and I'm like, I beg your pardon? And then we turn and we get to the last couple pages and I'm like, whoa, didn't see it coming, totally loved it. Apparently some people love this, some people hated it. I am a lover. I thought it was great. The chemistry was so much fun. Was it the most crazy, wild, out there, never seen it before thing in the world? No, but the writing wasn't bad. And I loved the banter between the two of them. I love enemies to lovers. You're gonna get me most times with enemies to lovers. And a vampire and a witch, yes. And at the end, the twist. I'm so excited to keep going with this one. Like, just try it. Just try it. Next, I owe a big fat thank you. And I'm afraid to give out like a full call out to any subscribers. So I'm just going to abbreviate her name. But a big thank you to a subscriber who very often and graciously comments. We're going to call her CC7420. She has her like name and then numbers, for encouraging me and saying, you can do it, you can read this, don't be afraid, I'm reading it, think of it as more enemies to lovers and you'll be totally fine. And thank you so much for that encouragement, because I picked it up without sheer terror and the need to like bring an entire box of like alcoholic chocolates with me when I read this. I got through it. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, so thank you very much. I appreciate you so much. So this is Bonesmith by Nikki Palfredo, and while it definitely was not my cup of tea, it was also not horrendous and did not give me the vast quantity of nightmares that I thought I was going to have. Ren is about to enter into this competition to prove that she is worthy of being a bonesmith. And bonesmiths are like these like violent little defenders, okay? And they have to like dispatch ghosties, okay, when the soul gets stuck to like their bodies and like they come back and like try and hurt people, and it's not super duper fun. So she is on her trial and she's going through this like super freaking haunted wood doing that, and like her friend who she's supposed to be working with like as a partner kind of like Well, it doesn't go well. And meanwhile, I'm like, okay, we got enemies to lovers. So is her enemy gonna be it? Is it the girl who betrayed her gonna be it? I'm waiting for the romance. Oh no, she's getting sent away for screwing up. Oh, now there's a prince who's coming to visit. Is he gonna be the enemy? Nope, 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 nope. They seem kind of friendly. Okay, Princey Pooh is getting kidnapped. Now we've got a problem, and now we've got a real enemy from an oppositional clan. Got it. And they were cute. My problem was that it was YA, but my salvation was also that it was YA. So the Bonesmiths, like, all of their magic is bone magic. She uses bone dust. She uses bone knuckles to like dispel ghosts. I'm mildly creeped out by all of this. However, I also wanted the smutty romance. Like, they're out there, like, getting destroyed by stuff and having to like bathe naked and huddle like in blankets naked around like fires all the time, and I'm just getting like tension and flirtation, and I know I can't have it both ways, but man, I wish I could, and that was my complaint. However, the world building was not YA. This was complex. I was trying to get through all the bone magic really, really fast. And you know what you're not allowed to do in this book? Get through the bone magic really, really fast, because it was complex. I had to slow my little butt down and reread a bunch of stuff and like go through and be like, okay, these are the different roles in the bone world. This is what this does. And here's how the weapons work. And okay, here's their history. Like, this world was so fleshed out. And probably because I avoid this type of magic, I'd never read anything like it. But for me, I need a little more color in my world. And yes, I do have a dress to match this, okay? I weirdly chose this book because I like the color green. Okay, I do. But the only colors we see in this book are white, black, gray, and green for this creepy, creepy spirits. That's all we see. And I am a veritable rainbow kind of girl, okay? I need more color in my life. So will I continue on? Probably not. But would I recommend this for someone who can handle creepier magic? Yes. And was this kind of an incredible read on actual Halloween? Yes. You know what? It's nice to read something I ordinarily wouldn't, and that is why I love readathons. And every once in a while, Nikki Malprado will come in and give you these lines about spirits and where they go and the undead. And she did give me enough of an emotional aspect to cling to help this book be a little more than I thought it was going to be. So definite points for that. Next up, I got Jessica Clare's Go Hex Yourself. I needed a book with a cat. I talked about this to death in my witch video. I'm going to reference all of my witch videos a whole ton in this video because I talked these books to death, gave them such in-depth reviews and summaries, so don't expect massive reviews on some of these because I've already talked them to death. However, this one is an adorable one about Reggie, who applies for a job thinking she is going to work for someone working for like a magical card game, and instead she's applying to be a familiar. That's right, a familiar to an actual magician. And this woman is delightful and wonderful and like your crazy old baddie witch lady, but her nephew is staying with her, and he is tall, dark, and handsome, and the two of them instantly do not hit it off, which is so much fun for me. I absolutely love instant enemies rather than insta-love most of the time. So, oh, and the cat, by the way, attitude love Mr. Mischievous over here. And you would think the two of them would just avoid one another, but no, they're stuck working together to break a curse. And I gotta say, of all the witchy reads that I read, this had some pretty freaking good spice, and I'm very excited to check out the sequel next year. This was really well done, so definitely recommend this one. Next, the book that I cried about for probably a solid week and a half was Circe by Madeline Miller. I have parents who waited like 20 years to have me, and they are way older than everybody else's parents, and I'm watching them deal with health issues. And so to watch a goddess who is living forever and slowly watch her lose everyone she loves time and time and time again, and get that sense of time marching on and the continual loss over and over and over, and feeling like you are waiting for your life to start until someone new comes into your life, and having just had a child not that long ago myself, My freaking god, this one absolutely destroy me. So Circe feels like she is the odd goddess out. She's actually a nymph, the daughter of the sun god Helios. She ends up really pissing Zeus off and getting banished to an island, and at first this isn't so bad because no one was nice to her. She ends up being a witch and having these powers that no one else has, but she doesn't have the true like mega goddess powers that so many others have either. And it is just this constant cycle of loneliness and love and loss. And the heartbreak comes from watching her realize, you know what, I might have these moments, but I'm really alone forever. And what is my life worth if I have no one to truly spend it with? And I'm just going to be losing everyone and everything I love continually. So this one, I'm way late to the party. I thought this was so much better than Song of Achilles, and I think I'm the odd one out on that, but wow. Hey, I can talk about it without crying now. Progress, people. Oh my freaking god. So next up, I had to pick the book that was like lowest rated on my TBR, and this had been on there forever. In fact, this is an arc for a book that was coming out in 2006. Do not ask me how this is on my shelf. This is supposed to be about New York's post 9/11 urban gentry, and the only character Wendy Wasserstein liked in this entire novel was a doctor named Frankie. She's the only one she attempted to make human. She gave her like an ailing father and a family, and the rest of them, what was this book? Elements of Style. How do I explain this book? I know why it was lowly rated, I'll tell you that much. This is sort of like Gossip Girl with the moms, and all they do is shop, and it's like continual social climbing. And then we have this weird, like, I think the author was trying to make parallels to possibly Great Gatsby, because Frankie is kind of like shown to be this more down-to-earth character who's sort of kind of coming in slightly from the outside because she's still working, and there's like these scandalous romances and this just unbelievable shopping, and we see these wild, like these very elaborate dinner parties. Then occasionally we get this like terror level orange alert throughout, like mentioned once or twice here or there. And then all of a sudden there's a fake terrorist attack in a Starbucks. As they approached the former gathering spot, the scene began to look more and more like a newsreel from Jerusalem. There were remains of coffee cups and body parts randomly tossed out towards the Reebok Sports Club. Glass was scattered on the street like an American Kristallnacht, except the shards were splattered with non-fat frappuccino. I don't think we should be comparing anything to Kristallnacht. And especially in current times, the whole, like, Jerusalem. Jesus, this book aged. Okay, like gas station sushi in the sun. Apparently this was her first foray into fiction, and she should have stuck to nonfiction because this was awful. And I see why it was so lowly rated. Next up, I picked The Babysitters Coven by Kate Williams, which was indeed as YA as I feared it would be. This was very much like Adventures in Babysitting meets like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You've got a coven, you've got a group of girls who have a babysitters club, and oh wait, they're accidentally witches. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, that's all you really need to know about this book. It's young, it's funny, there's a lot of fashion-y references to it, but they all feel, like, very vintagey. I do think that it had some pacing issues. A lot of the beginning of it was very slow to get going. This did feel like kind of prologue-y, but I did find out that this is a series, and I would not be surprised to see this get picked up at some point for, like, a Disney Plus show or something. It did have that kind of vibe. I could see, like, tweens absolutely loving this. So that's my take on this one. Next up, I read Weyward by Amelia Hart, and I was scared to read this one because I had heard this has some brutal scenes. All three women experience abuse in different ways at the hands of men. This follows three women in three timelines. The years we see are 2019, 1619, and 1942. And that is indeed true, but the language softens it. This cover explains it so well. If you look closer, you see dangerous aspects of nature, slightly more macabre aspects of nature, slightly creepy aspects of nature, nature that can potentially defend itself, maybe with poison, maybe with birds pecking things, whatever, bees stinging things. However, the language is very cottagecore. You get such an emphasis on nature and women's connection to nature through witchcraft. Yes, this is another witchy book, but all of these women who come to live in the Weyward cottage for one reason or another are all linked through the Weyward bloodline, and I ended up loving this book. I thought it was really well done. All of these women find their power one way or another. They find their connection to one another. Well, maybe not the first one. That would be impressive. I am so glad that I got over my fear of this one and picked it up because it does deserve a read, but do check your trigger warnings because this is just rife with them. Multiple ones, okay? This is What You Gonna Do by Avery Flynn. This had feathers on it, and that's why I picked it. I can't believe I forgot it was in there. This was such a cute book. This had a world that felt very similar in a way to Ella Enchanted. We've got like magical forest and ogres and like unicorns, trolls appearing under bridges and dwarves demanding payment in M&Ms. Like this was a fully built magical world, and that was one of my favorite parts. The chemistry between the two was also fantastic, but this is another enemies to lovers because I need enemies to lovers, okay? It's my preference. You're gonna see it so much here. But this is about one of the tropes that I also don't love, which is a witch who is born into a super duper powerful family who does not have powers of her own. However, this was done in a different way, an unusual way, a way that made sense, and a way that made me not hate this trope. So congratulations, Avery Flynn. Well done. Now, meanwhile, her love interest, Gil, also does a pretty good job at explaining why they're not getting along, why they have animosity, and why they finally do get along in the end. I loved this book. I had a ton of fun with this book. I love the cover of this book. This was a great witchy read. I think there are going to be more because she has sisters and they just feel like they have books coming too. So I enjoyed this thoroughly. There is a whole like underlying plot line that sneaks up on you as well. So I do feel like Avery Flynn's setting us up for more books to come. Next up, I read Crown of Blood and Glass by Lucinda Dark and Rebecca Gray. This is such a pretty edition, I know. I'm never tabbing sprayed edges again. This was my lesson. So this is about Devonry. She is the crown princess of Rosentine. She loves her dad. She's got this semi-annoying but sort of friend, Solomon, who's a royal guard who's super handsome. Hang on to him for a minute. And Nasir, one of her really good friends, has just shown up from a foreign kingdom and she's engaged to his older brother who's the crown prince. She goes through her ceremony, life's fine, and then things really go downhill when her dad gets murdered. And suddenly she's on the run with Solomon, her guard. So the problem with this is that Nasir decides to take over her kingdom, which really is quite a bold move, but only after he's like, I did this for you, so we could be married. I thought that's what you wanted. Sure you did, buddy. Anyway, she's on the run, except Solomon comes from like this kingdom where they're kind of like considered lower and like barbarians and stuff, and like obviously, like, we're gonna learn that's not quite the case. Heart of Gold, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I loved this book so much. We have this maybe soulmate thing going on. We've got one bed, one horse. We've got all the tropes that I just love. They are sniping at each other in the beginning, cannot get along, but he is secretly pining for her. We do get like dual POV, which I love in these type of books. I'm gonna call this what it is. This is like fantasy, not junk food, but you know when you first started reading fantasy, this is fantasy comfort food, okay? This is the OG, all the tropes. You kind of know what's going to happen. These are your comfort characters. You see the stuff you want to see. You get all the stuff you want out of it. You're not going to get a ton of surprises, but it gives you all that stuff you want. You get to kick your feet, you get to giggle, you know the characters, you kind of know what's coming. Maybe it's not done exactly the way I think it is all the time, but like, this is my fantasy comfort food. I loved every minute except for the prologue, and allow me to explain. The two of them are like shot way into the future in the prologue in this very intense scene, and they're about to like, you know, potentially get together. And like, then it shoots you back to the very freaking beginning of the book when they are barely speaking. And I'm still waiting. Okay, this is not like a fast burn. I mean, they're but I'll be buying the sequel, but it's not out yet. So yeah, you'll be hearing more about this later. And I saw at the very end, they're throwing in more stuff that reminds me a little bit of like Throne of Glass stuff. And I'm just like, yes, 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 yes. Bring it on. I love this. You are just giving me everything I wanted. So thank you. Next up was Wild is the Witch by Rachel Griffin. This is about a girl who accidentally curses an owl when she is trying to send an angry curse into the ground when a guy pisses her off, and now she has to go search down the owl because if anything happens to said owl and the curse gets out, it's going to spread all over the place because owls are magical amplifiers. Oopsie. And of course, who goes along with her? The guy she wasn't getting along and accidentally cursed because he's a freaking ornithologist. Usually I give Rachel Griffin nothing but raves. For me, this one just didn't work as well. I thought the language was a downgrade. I thought the characters were a downgrade. I really just didn't feel the maturity that I usually feel from her. And yes, I know I'm talking about YA novels, but all of her books are YA novels. So I feel like this is a fair comparison to say. What I hated was that I feel like she took away all of the agency from her male character. He was forced into the position where he had to develop certain feelings, had to say certain things, had to do certain things. And I know that we know what's going to happen in a lot of these books a lot of the time, but the fact that he had to, or very bad things were going to happen to our main character, very bad things were going to happen in general to the world, and like he had no choice. And that bothers me so very much. So I didn't get along well with this book, which absolutely kills me, and it also just didn't have the beautiful writing that I usually expect from Rachel Griffin. So breaks my heart, but not a rave. What was a rave was Bring Me Your Midnight. I could talk about this book forever and ever. And you've heard me talk about this book forever and ever. Love. Next up, I should stack these somewhere they're not going to fall. Next up, we had Meg Cabot's Enchanted to Meet You. This is, in case you forgot, the author of The Princess Diaries, and this is exactly what you would expect from the author of The Princess Diaries to do with witches. This is an adult novel, so we have a grown-up witch, but she has like minor magic and is running a clothing boutique. So yes, in case you're wondering, there is like a ball at the end, and she dresses everyone, and they're all in ball gowns, like running around doing their final like big scene at the end. I loved it. It was great. The love interest was super fun. They did have chemistry. You're not going to get like the full open door space from her. I don't think she's ever going to give us that, which I fully respect and understand. Like, she wrote Princess Diaries. It's fine. She does know how to do chemistry, however. Like, did you see the Princess Diaries too? Yeah, no, Chris Pine and Anne Hathaway can like get it. This is about, as I explained, Jessica, who runs that lovely clothing boutique, and one day this guy named Derek shows up and is like, hey, and she's like, are you from the Witches Council? And he's like, no, calm yourself down, it'll be fine. But by the way, like, we have to save the town. You're like the chosen one. Say what? And so it's them saving the town from like a nefarious like disaster. It was cute. It was enchanting. That is the word. It was just a delightful little romp. And save it for Halloween, because the whole thing takes place right around Halloween. Save it. Save it for Halloween or Summerween, but it was perfectly delightful. Next up, I reread Mooncakes. This is about a witch and a werewolf. They were childhood friends, and then our werewolf had to move away for a while, and now they are back, and they are here because like there's this really terrifying ghost horse demon thing in the forest, and they're like, so yeah, wolfy power can help dispel that, and that's why I'm here. And Witchy Poo's like, you're also here for my heart, right? And it's just their love story. They're so cute. They're so wonderful. And they stay with the witch, and it's just so wholesome. The witch works in like a bookshop, and the forest is full of other than the creepy freaking horse thing, is full of these like wholesome, beautiful, magical creatures. And I read this last Halloween, and I just couldn't resist reading it again this Halloween. I've only just discovered graphic novels in like the last 2 years, and like when I find one that I love, I'll reread it and reread it and reread it because I want to be back in that world, okay? Does that not look like me? Like, come on. I loved it. They're adorable. Next was In the Hall with the Knife. This is the first of a series. These are based on the Clue board game and the Clue movie. And it is just so full of Clue Easter eggs. If you have read this, Diana Peterfreund did a great job because, wow, she watched that movie as much as I did, and that is saying something. We have Mr. Body as the headmaster. We have all the colors. We do see all of the weapons pop up along the way, which was so brilliant. Specifically from the movie, we see them splitting up into groups to search the 3 floors in the one house where the murder occurs. We see the secret passageways. We see the phrase, oh, "It's you," multiple times. The mystery was pretty great. I didn't see stuff coming. The twist at the end, I was like, hello, PLL. We're just gonna keep, twist. Got it. We really are setting up more books, but it was very wide. However, at the end of the month, my brain was so shut off that having something this easy to read was so appreciated, because did I mention 32 books? It's fine. It was worth it, believe me. Next up was Not the Witch You Wed. This was by April Asher and kind of ended up being a bit of a disappointment. This one was about Violet Maxwell, another magical witch who's born in a triad, which are super rare, super like supposed to have tons of magic, especially the first witch in the triad, which she is, but it passed over her, went to her sister, and now her sister is engaged to like this super obnoxious, smarmy Gaston like fellow who's the head of the werewolf clan over in like Europe. And meanwhile, she's at their engagement party and she bumps into her old friend who like freaking broke her heart, okay, when they were in high school, who's now head of the North American werewolf clan. That would be this guy right here. And Mr. Lincoln Thorne never explained why he just like ditched her. And so she's like, you know, not loving him at the moment, can't really blame her. But as it turns out, both of them need to find a mate ASAP, according to the rules set for her triad situation, and according to all of his peers. He needs to show that he's serious and deserves to be head of the North American werewolf clans. So the two of them were like, we'll fake date. It'll be fine. At least it's like not the worst thing that could happen by having to marry total strangers. We all know how this is going to end. I prefer the first half of this book to the second half. I feel like it really lost steam, and for an alpha werewolf, I'll bark. No bite. Finally, we have Hex in the City by Kate Johnson. This was about Poppy. She was a witch. She has magical hair a la Rapunzel. This was chaotic. One night she gets super drunk and accidentally curses a pendant, which she sort of forgets she's done, and then sells to Axel Storm the next day. And who's Axel Storm, you ask? He is this 6'4", absolutely flipping gorgeous guy who just so happens to be a stage magician, and not like, you know, pull a rabbit out of a hat. No. He has this amazing stage show with like huge stunts and sells out every night. He plays like a shirtless Viking, like to the delight of everyone. So yeah, she needs to go get it back, but chaos ensues. I wanted to love this. I wanted to love this so much. And you know what? I loved Axel. I really freaking did. I did not love Poppy / Rapunzel because she was a total ripoff of Rapunzel, except they took her adorkableness and like turned it up 15 notches, and she was just, it was too much. It was too much. It was too much. And they did explain it. They did, but it didn't matter. It was too much for me. This was basically very action adventure-y, like think like The Mummy or whatever, a movie like that. And I love that movie, okay, but they just kept going and going and going, and then they like have sex in the middle of it, and that would catapult them like back in time, and it was too much. This was too much for me. I'm very, very, very sorry to say. So that's 16 books. I read another 16 because I'm an idiot and thought I had a lot to prove. But here we go. I listened to people like us, which turned out to be super appropriate. It starts on Halloween night, after the Halloween ball, when these girls go down to the lake and find a frickin' body in the lake. They're at a boarding school, and we're following Kay. And Kay, when she wakes up the next morning, gets an email from the dead girl, and she's like, so here's the thing. I'm gonna send you like these tasks you have to do, and they're gonna make your friends miserable, but they're also gonna take them off like the potential murderer list for them, so that's kind of good. They're not gonna know like that part though. So you're gonna make your friends hate you, whoopsie, sorry. But you only have 24 hours to do it, or you're gonna get locked out of all this. If you fail to complete this, I'm going to send a link of proof of your crime to the police and the school. and then you're gonna be stuck and not get to go to college and not get to do anything ever. Bye, have fun! And there's a lot more to it than that. I was pitched that this is like Gossip Girl meets PLL, and it is so much darker than that. Oh my god, no! I don't think it's as good as it could have been, and maybe that's why we haven't heard tons and tons about it, but like, it got dark. There's a cat. He'll never ever meow. I'll put it that way. Dark. Beginning of the month, I was also feeling very, very sorry for myself. So I read Pumpkinheads because our pumpkin picking trip got rained out, and then the next day everyone was sick, and I knew that the illness was coming for me next because I was taking care of everyone who was sick. So Rainbow Rowell, thank you for my annual read. I actually read this in Summerween too. This is just a delightful graphic novel about friends, illustrated by Faith Erin Hicks, who work at a pumpkin patch, and they're just besties, and it's wonderful and delightful, and you watch them go through this entire amazing pumpkin patch and like the market and all the stalls and eat all the treats and do all the things for an entire night, and it is just everything you could ever want from a pumpkin patch experience, and I recommend this to everyone in October. And I know it's weird because I've never thought I'd be a graphic novel person, but they're not the same as comics, and I learned that 2 years ago. So yay. Next, I was rounding out my list of things for my YA Witch video. So I read Strange Grace by Tessa Gratton. This is super freaking creepy. This is about Grace witches who made a deal with the actual devil, okay? The actual devil, to keep their village super healthy and make everything perfect there. Like, there's no blights, there's no illness. Childbirth isn't that bad. No women die in childbirth. No babies die in childbirth. There's no plagues. Everything is great and wonderful and goes along as it's supposed to, so long as they have a nice little ceremony every 7 years. See, the bone tree is this big white tree, and every 7 years these lovely red leaves will show up on it, and it'll look like it's bleeding, and that means that there's very soon going to be a slaughter moon, and doesn't that sound fun for everyone? Yeah, on that night they'll have a big bonfire, and then they'll send a boy in a blessed shirt to go into the devil's wood, and mostly they don't survive. Occasionally they come back out-ish. And then they get another 7 years, and then they get to do it again. As the book is opening, we're seeing blights, and we're seeing an illness, and we're seeing some signs that, gosh, something has gone wrong with this deal. We have Mare, who is a grace witch. We have Rune, who he is certain in 4 years he's going to be going into that forest, because it's always the golden boy of the town who goes into the forest and gets sacrificed, okay? And then we have their other best friend, Arthur. Guess what? It's time to send another sacrifice because something has gone horribly wrong. And they know Rune's going to be willing to go in, and Mare and Arthur are, well, they really love Rune, and they really don't want him to go in, and these geniuses are determined to possibly go into it themselves if they have to prevent this. You know what you don't want to do? Go into a place called the Devil's Forest. Bad things happen there. Bad animals come out of there. Animals without eyes, animals with purple glowing eyes, animals with like thorns for hooves that bleed purple glowing things, and all you hear are their clicking creepy teeth. But yeah, no, this was a great spooky haunting read. And the author had some things to say, let me tell you. If you want to hear more, check out my YA video. The same goes for the next 3 books. Okay, this is Spells for Lost Things by Jenna Evans Welch. Yes, Love and Gelato, Love and Luck, all those books. This was slightly different. We had 2 main characters. We had Willow, whose mom is like super straight-laced, and then like one day she shocks her daughter and is like, I know we live in California with this super rigid lifestyle, but I never told you I have a twin, and now she's dead, and we have to go clean out her house in Salem. By the way, she was a witch. And then we have Mason, who's going to live with hopefully his final foster family in Salem because his mom has like substance abuse issues and could not take care of him herself. And the 2 of them come together and go romping through Salem and come to like see all the wonderful witchy things, all the historical things, and maybe solve a little bit of a mystery, such as like, oh, I don't know, was Willow's aunt actually a witch? It goes more into depth than that. I can't tell you a whole ton without ruining things, but this was a wonderful book. I think this was such a step up for Jenna Evans Welch. I loved this. I know it says YA, but I think anyone of any age could enjoy this. These two characters were wonderful, and there was a depth to it. There really was. They both have issues with their parents in very, very, very different ways. And there is no third act like issue between the two of them either. I will say that, which was so appreciated. Just so appreciated. Loved this book. Next, we've got witches who want to sign their name in the Devil's Book so they can win their field hockey season. I'm not kidding. This takes place where the original Salem witch trials were held. This is by Quan Barry, and this is not super YA. This reads like an adult book. It is dense. It is wisely observed. I don't even like sports. The tiniest bit. Not even a little. The only thing I liked about field hockey was the cute skirts, okay? And we didn't even get to wear those in gym class. No, did we? No. But this was great. There were so many references to the Salem witch trials. Some of the characters were named after various people in them. We get to see the kids visit Salem, and then we also got to see them for every match that they were playing, and they continually upped the ante for what they felt like they had to do in order to please the book or their contract to ensure that they kept winning their field hockey games. This was kind of dark. This was also very irreverent. I want you to think Heathers. This takes place in the 80s, so I really want you to think Heathers. It was a time capsule. It was funny. It was witty, but it was sharp. Again, if you want to see more on these YA books, check out my YA witch recommendations, but this was such a surprise. After that, I wanted to supplement my witchy romance rom-com video, so I added a few more books to that. You saw my entire rant on Witch Please by Anne Acquire, and if you didn't, boy, were you missing out. I hated this book. This was a 1-star book. I won't give spoilers. So I can tell you that our main character, Danica, she has technology-based magic, and that's been passed down in her family for hundreds of years. And if you can explain how that worked 500 years ago, I sure would love to know, because everything she does is with zappy electronic stuff, which is usually the stuff I destroy. And then 20 pages in, our main guy has already decided after one 10-minute conversation with her that he's going to marry her and have like 2 to 5 babies. He had no agency. He was kind of incelly. He was really just kind of very creepy, and I really hated this whole entire book. The plot was terrible. The characters were pretty much awful. You don't need this book. If you want to hear a full spoiler reason why, and I have very good reasons why you should not read this book, please, absolutely go check out my witchy romance video and just watch this one, because wow, was this bad? Wow, was this bad? Want to know what one was really great? Was Witchful Thinking by Celestine Martin. This is about a witch who kind of seems to have it all. She lives in this amazing place down the Jersey Shore, which I'm going to be biased towards, sorry. And she lives in a place where magic is just accepted and out in the open, and there are magical creatures, and it's delightful and wonderful. And she's a teacher, and at night she reads tea leaves, and she lives in this adorable little cottage that used to be her parents with her sisters, and like honestly, her life sounds pretty great, except she wants more. So she makes a wish with a wish spell with her sister and her friend to have a more adventurous life. Boy, maybe don't make such open-ended wishes, but you know, it kind of works out. So all of a sudden she's like signed up for a 10K and in a baking competition and singing karaoke, and none of this is really that bad. And then all of a sudden her high school crush comes back, and he's like, hey, and she's like, hey, and he's like, I think the house they bought is jinxed. Can you help me? And she's like, sure. And this high school crush, by the way, is a merman. A merman. This takes place this summer, and it was kind of refreshing. But you know what was lovely about this book was the writing. I didn't notice the writing in a lot of the rom-coms that I was reading in this like 5-day span. It was wild. But this, wow. Celestine Martin just took her time and used some really beautiful language and really brought forth the emotion in this book. If you prefer your love scenes to be focused on the emotion as opposed to the physical aspects, this is the one for you. Witchful Thinking really, really did that. And it did have like some of those scenes that got you going a little bit. She got to like touch his little fishy tail, which I know, I have a thing for that. I got it. I know. But oh man, I think this is such an undiscovered gem. I really enjoyed this, and I need to go look up Celestine Martin and see what else she has written, because this was really, 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 really well done. The other one I really, 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 really love was Wolf Gone Wild by Juliet Cross. This got picked up by a traditional publisher, and the sequel is coming out this month, like this week, I think. Next week, whatever. This was so, like, oh, of all the romances I read, this was the one where, like, this is the one that did it for me, guys. This is the one. I mean, there was a scene where they didn't even do anything more than him, like, pressing up against her and, like, pulling her ponytail back, and I, like, so let me tell you, this is about Mateo, and he has not been able to shift into his wolf for months, and his wolf has a serious attitude problem. This guy is like, hey, he's literally talking to him in his head, like, there's dialogue, go punch that guy, he was looking at us funny, and Mateo's like, shut up, I need to finish my sculpture, or you're going to get us kicked out of another bar, like, just please give me 2 seconds of silence. And so he finally finds Evie, and Evie's supposed to be this, like, curse breaker, that's, like, her amazing gift as a witch, and he's like, I am begging you, please, I'm a danger to society, make my wolf shut up, figure out how to break this curse, because if I don't get him out of me, I am going to maim someone. And Evie's like, look, our coven kind of has this rule, like, no werewolves, because you guys are kind of like us when we're PMSing on steroids. But you know what? You are kind of a danger to society, so yeah, I'm going to kind of help you, because this is, like, ridiculous. Wow. Do you need chocolate? Oh, can werewolves have chocolate? Can dogs have chocolate? Fun question. She didn't ask that. I'm asking that. Little does darling Evie know that his wolf, meanwhile, is like, dude, get it. Get some. That's the one. And his wolf is like, yeah, basically in love with this girl. And he finally kind of, like, chills out and shuts up when Evie's around. So Mateo's like, I'm paying you to break this curse. Can you, like, maybe be around us for, like, a little more than that, and, like, do what you have to do in your, like, computer in my studio while I'm sculpting, because my stupid freaking wolf named Alpha occasionally shuts up when you're around. And she's like, I guess. Thus begins their romance, except Alpha occasionally kind of, like, comes to the forefront for fun stuff. Ooh, it was good. I'm sorry, I'm done. I already talked about this, but, like, I don't want to stop talking about this. Read the book. Okay, next. I got really stupidly ambitious, and you haven't heard me talk about any of these yet, because I planned an entire video, an entire script, and then realized I didn't have time to film it or edit it if I was going to do my trio of witch videos in time for Halloween. And I'm still devastated, and then I realized, you know what, I'm going to be on BookTube for a very long time. So I've got Summerween, next Halloween. Here's a little preview of things that will be coming in the future. Witches, Sluts, and Feminists by Kristen J. Soleil. So, okay. Fun stuff here. Conjuring the Sex Positive. This was a really, how do I deal with these books? This was an interesting read. So I loved parts of this, and I didn't love parts of this. I didn't necessarily need lots of little, like, vignettes from modern practicing witches. It wasn't what I was really looking for in this book. In fact, this was originally pitched to me more as, like, why witchcraft has suddenly become such a thing in the modern world. We've got witch talk, we've got, like, whimsy goth, we've got so much witchcraft going on in, like, rom-coms and books and on television and stuff. Why is that? What does that mean? What is that saying about society? And that was what I was really interested about. And we didn't get, like, tons and tons and tons and tons on that. However, this is so packed of information in such a tiny, tiny, tiny little book. This was so interesting in so many ways. There's an entire chapter on Tituba, which I really appreciated in my research for a video that will be on the Salem witch trials at some point. And different parts were so great. There's a chapter on why Hillary Clinton was called witch, and how that language was used to try and take her power, and how women were trying to then take that word back, and how the reclamation of language is becoming such an important part of our society today. So parts of this were brilliant, parts of this I didn't love. All in all, I have to say, I do recommend this book, particularly if you don't know a lot about witchcraft, because this does explain a lot about the modern practice of witchcraft and what it is and what it is not. And there are a lot of misconceptions, let's be honest. There's no Satan in witchcraft. Next, we had In Defense of Witches, The Legacy of the Witch Hunts and Why Women Are Still on Trial by Mona Chollet, with a foreword by Carmen Maria Machado. And I am sorry to say that I enjoyed the foreword more than I enjoyed the actual book. And this is a translated work. Maybe that had something to do with it, but I don't think so, because that's not where my complaint comes from. So the foreword had more to do with the title than most of the rest of the book. I feel like this was very much clickbaity because witches are so popular right now, and if this had been named something else, maybe I wouldn't have picked it up at this particular time, but I also wouldn't have been expecting the book to be something it wasn't. Each chapter does try to bring it back to witchcraft to a certain extent. Like, the second chapter is about wanting sterility and how women now are so pressured to have children and frowned upon when they choose not to have children. And it does talk a little bit about how witches usually weren't women with children, but that wasn't always true. We saw in the Salem witch trials a mother and her child were two of the victims who were hanged. So not true. And then another very interesting chapter was about the gap in healthcare for men and women, but none of it really related back to the title. So while it was a very interesting book, everything was stuff that I have A, read before, and B, didn't go deeper, and C, very meanderingly made it back to the title, but didn't do a great job. Honestly, when I was working on what I thought was going to be a really in-depth video about the Salem witch trials, the foreword was what I kept referencing the most. So I think that says a lot. By the way, I think I'll be reading something by Carmen Maria Machado very, very soon, because wow, can that woman write. The book that I absolutely used the most was The Witches in 1692 Salem. This is by Stacy Schiff, and holy moly, is this woman a historian. Do you see all the this book is 400 pages of nothing but the Salem witch trials. From beginning to end, this gives it all, why they maybe occurred. We're going to be exploring that at some point on this channel. I can't wait. I am now obsessed with the Salem witch trials. It goes through each trial. It talks about all the key players. It is so unbelievably fascinating. We have actual little plates that have things like the jail keeps records. We have plates that show, here is Reverend Paris's account of his prison visit with Martha Corey. We have a deposition in here. The things that are included in this book, we have portraits, some of the visual representations that were being used show villagers what witches looked like and what to watch out for. This book was unbelievable. The research was meticulous. The arguments about what may have occurred were so thorough, were so interesting. Obviously, I went and went further because I'm a crazy person, but I just ate this book up. At times, yes, it was too dense. There was so much information, but wow. Cannot recommend this more if you are as obsessed with the Salem witch trials as I am, or just wait for my video, which will come out either at Summerween or next Halloween. But wow, this was incredible. Next up were the books in my Crone or Wise Old Witches video. I read The Witches of Moonshyne Manor by Bianca Morais, and I think this was one of the books that actually inspired that entire video. This is about a group of elderly witches who are octogenarians, that old, living in a wonderful old house that is sort of crumbling around them, but attached to said house is a distillery, and they have the only alcohol license in town, and they are responsible thus for providing the alcohol to the town. And the men of the town, they don't like this. So they have decided that because the witches are behind on their house payments, they're going to take their house from them, take a wrecking ball, knock it down, and put in its place a place called, I kid you not, Men's World. Lovely, right? Well, thankfully, the mayor's daughter, Persephone, who's 12 or something, is not going to stand for this, and she makes sure to catch everything behind the scenes on TikTok, and she's not going to let anything nefarious go down. So the witches stand a fighting chance. If they can just remember where they put something very, very important, that's worth a lot of money in time. This was so cute. This was so much fun. There was a lot of great witchy stuff going on in here, and each one of the witches had a different kind of magic and a very different personality. So we got to see all kinds of magic, and there was even a heist that happened in here in flashbacks. So you got a little bit of everything. This was just a lot of fun and great for this time of year. This was very feminist, female power. I loved it. It was a great time. You just... You couldn't help but root for these elderly ladies who were not going to take their old age in stride, let me tell you. The other book that absolutely inspired this, the minute I started reading it, was Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson. This is obviously about a very secret coven of witches who are under a very secret branch in the government who are responsible for protecting the crown and England. And there is a lot going on in England right now. We have got some nefarious magical stuff going on. They do need to be on their guard, and there is a super dangerous prophecy that it sounds like is about to come true, and these witches better be on their toes. They have been besties since they were teeny tiny girls, and now they are all grown up. We have got Helena, Neve, Leonie, and Elle, and they are all in slightly different places in their lives. Elle is married and has a kid, for example, whereas Helena, my gosh, she is the high priestess of the whole darn royal coven. And Leonie, nope, she's decided she's branching off, starting her own coven for those she thinks have been underserved in the royal coven. So we've got it all going on in this book. It is super feminist, super fun. We've got lots of magic. We've got some great scenes that show us younger witches starting to learn their magic and come into their power. I loved this book, and I definitely will be picking up the sequel. Next, we had Venco, which begs the question, what if covens that were run like MLMs? And at the very top was the physical embodiment of the goddess. We have a maiden, we have a mother, we have a crone. They live in a great mansion, they have all the money, and then it sprinkles down to a coven on each continent. And you have less time to find each coven member as you go along. So right now we have 5 coven members sitting in a pretty little mansion trying to find coven member number 6, and that happens to be Lucky St. James, who is hanging out up in Canada with her grandma, and they come to find out they are part of this coven by finding a spoon with the name Salem on it. So this is the adventure of trying to find that last coven member in time while being hunted by a witch hunter who is completely gorgeous. Why not? This feels like a prologue. It really does. But there are more books coming, and at the very end we do see it all tied together and get like this zoomed out vision of how we're really going to get a chance to see the big adventure start in the next book. So I do think I will continue on with this one. I'm excited to see where it goes, and it does show that all magic is valid, and there are so many different kinds of magic, from native tribal magic to tarot cards to everything you can name, scrying, you name it. It's in this book, and I can't wait to see all these magics come together and see even more kinds of magic in the next one. Probably my favorite and a very last minute choice was The Change by Kirsten Miller, and I kept thinking, oh, I'm intimidated by this book. This does not read intimidating. This reads empowering. This reads wonderful. You've got a murder mystery going on, but you've also got these women going through the change. That's right. We've got some like menopausal ladies hunting down a murderer. This has some of the best wisdom. This rewrites some of those stories that haunt women from the dawn of time. I'm looking at you, Adam and Eve. This talks about why we watch podcasts and why we feel the need to explore some of those things that go bump in the night. This gave empowerment. This gave it's okay to be scared. This gave everything. I loved this book with my whole heart. This had the best quotes. This talked about, witches are women who can't be confined by one title, how witches are the women on the outskirts of society. This was everything I want it to be and so much more. In a way, I'm so glad I waited to read it until now, because it was its moment. And I wholeheartedly recommend this one. I loved this book. This was 5 stars for me. And the very last book that I read for the month of October was If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. And I read this because one of you wonderful, lovely subscribers who always comments on my video, and I'm not going to use your full name just in case you don't want me to, but I will use your initials, JA9453, you know who you are. Thank you for always being a wonderful supporter. Commented on my Dark Academia video when I said, someone make me read this book. And she said, you have to read this book. You're going to love it. And you were totally right. If We Were Villains by ML Rio was 100,000% a 5-star book. If you like Shakespeare, if you were a theater kid, even if you weren't, I don't care. If you like dark academia, if you like mysteries, if you like thrillers, if you like twisty-turny things, if you like to explore relationships between people, this was amazing. I didn't know who did it till the very end. I didn't know it was going to happen till the very end. There are still things at the very end where I hit the last like 2 pages and I was like, and then I hit the last page and I was like, I loved all the Shakespeare. I tried reading the hard copy. She recommended that I try the audiobook. I tried that edition. They were all wonderful. It was all great. I loved every second of this book. Oh my god, what is it about? Okay, it is about Oliver, who is just getting out of jail, and the detective who put him there for 10 freaking years comes over to him and is like, look, I'm retiring. Your case has bothered me forever. Just tell me what happened. And I mean, you're dealing with like actors who are in like the best acting conservatory in the whole wide world. All they do is Shakespeare, and all they do is like talk in Shakespeare lines half the time. You're never gonna know the truth. You're never gonna know. They're gonna act circles around the police the entire time. Of course you're never gonna know. And he's finally like, okay, I'll tell you. And the whole time, the detective's like, are you telling me the truth? Can you tell me the truth now? Are you telling me the truth now? It was so good. It was so good. It was so good. But you get to go back to their flashbacks and senior year of college, and you have this cast of characters, and they basically are continually typecast. You've got like the villain, you have the ingenue, you have the femme fatale, you've got the hero, the best friend, the like guy who can do nothing wrong. Like you have like the typical cast of Shakespeare characters, and Oliver himself is like, I don't know what I'm good at. I'm just kind of like here because I can fill any like of the leftover roles. And then all of a sudden the roles start switching and stuff happens. Oh, but the relationships, they're complex, they're brilliant, and because the language of Shakespeare that is used consistently, ML Rio can use the most heightened language and amazing descriptions throughout the entire book, and it feels so natural, and you can see the reflections of the plots and the plays as we go through with the characters. And as a total Shakespeare nerd who actually took like multiple classes on Shakespeare plays like entirely in college, why did I take so long to read this? I had such deep emotional connections and reactions to these characters, and I had no idea what the hell was going on in terms of like what was going to happen in the murders. Like, no freaking clue. I am not that smart, apparently. But honestly, I think maybe ML Rio managed to get me to feel that way and do that because I was so distracted by the beauty of everything and the plays. We were focused on other things, and then all of a sudden, bam. Right, you forgot that was happening in the background, didn't you? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. You can do anything you want when you're writing that beautifully. Yes, you can. 5 stars, 6 stars, 10 stars. This was amazing. Thank you so much to my subscriber who made me read this, because what a way to finish out my month. Thank you so much for joining me for the world's longest wrap-up. There's 32 books with me. So, I'm never doing this again. This is a really solid life choice. Let me tell you, how many books did you read in October? Were you sane? I bet you were sane. I hope you had a wonderful Halloween and an amazing month filled with the best spooky reads ever. Please like and subscribe, because this is how dedicated I am to all of you. I love you all so much. Thank you so much for your time. I will let you get back to your book, and I'll be getting back to mine, but at a much more normal human reading pace this month. Bye.